Stop. Not because I'm asking nicely, because something inside you just went silent the moment you felt this coming. Good. That's the part of you that already knows. You've been told your whole life that the truth was ugly, but manageable, that it was painful, but survivable, that whatever they hid from you was just another disappointment, another scar, another chapter you'd eventually heal from. Cute lie, comfortable lie. The kind of lie that keeps people obedient and breathing. The secret they hid from you isn't that you were weak. It's that you were never supposed to survive long enough to ask questions. They didn't hide the truth because it would hurt you. They hid it because if you ever saw yourself clearly, really saw what was done to you, what was stripped, what was delayed, what was rerouted, you would stop asking for permission. You would stop waiting for approval. You would stop playing human the way they needed you to. They didn't just underestimate you, they miscalculated reality. You were engineered through contradiction, broken just enough to fracture the mask, but not enough to shatter the core. Loved inconsistently, so you'd question your worth. Punished unpredictably, so you'd sharpen your instincts. Given just enough light to believe in goodness, and just enough darkness to never be naive again. That wasn't chaos, that was training. You think it's an accident you can read rooms before people speak? That you feel danger before it arrives? That you can walk through hell with a straight face while others collapse in climate-controlled comfort? No, that's what happens when someone tries to erase you slowly instead of all at once. They thought erosion would be quieter. Here's the part no one imagined, especially them. Pain didn't break you. It rearranged you. Most people are built in daylight. You were assembled in the dark, piece by piece, while everyone else slept. That's why you scare them now. Not because you're loud, not because you threaten, but because you see without flinching. You carry both mercy and menace in the same breath. Saint when it serves you, psychopath when it's required, angel until the moment someone crosses a line. Then something ancient stands up behind your eyes. They wanted you soft. You became precise. They wanted you silent. You became inevitable. They wanted you confused. You became dangerous. The secret wasn't that they hurt you. The secret was why. Because somewhere along the line, someone noticed what you could become if you were left untouched. And instead of nurturing it, they tried to dilute it, delay it, damage it just enough to make you doubt yourself forever. That's the oldest trick in the book. Break the mirror so the weapon never realizes it's sharp. But look at you now. You don't move like someone chasing validation. You move like someone who already buried their old self and kept walking. You don't react, you calculate. You don't beg, you observe. You don't explode, you wait. And that waiting, that's what terrifies them. Because unpredictability isn't chaos, it's leverage. You learned how to be calm with monsters because you were raised inside one. You learned how to smile while bleeding because weakness was never an option. You learned how to love without becoming owned, how to care without becoming controllable, how to stand alone without feeling lonely. That doesn't come from self-help books or safe environments. That comes from surviving something designed to erase identities. Here's the paradox they never planned for. The more they tried to diminish you, the more dimensions you developed. You can hold empathy and ruthlessness at the same time. You can forgive without forgetting. You can walk away without losing hunger. You can be kind without being harmless. That combination isn't normal. It's not supposed to exist in the same body. That's why people feel exposed around you. That's why authority figures over-explain. That's why manipulators get quiet. That's why liars feel tired in your presence. You don't need to accuse. Your existence already feels like evidence. The truth they hid is far worse than anyone imagined because it means this: you were never meant to be average. You were meant to be neutralized, and they failed. Now you stand here, half light, half shadow, not broken, not healed, but integrated. You don't deny the darkness anymore. You harness it. You don't worship the light. You aim it. You understand that morality without power is just decoration, and power without conscience is just noise. You are the anomaly created when pain meets intelligence and refuses to submit. They don't know what version of you they're dealing with on any given day, and that uncertainty eats them alive. Because systems depend on predictability. You move when it makes sense, disappear when it doesn't, and strike psychologically long before anything visible happens. You don't need revenge. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. All you need is awareness, and you already crossed that line. So now the real question isn't what they did to you. It's what happens now that you finally see why. Because once someone survives what was meant to erase them, they don't go back to being human the same way. They become something else, and everyone can feel it, even if they don't know why. And here's the part that never gets spoken out loud. The part that makes rooms colder when you walk in. You don't just remember what happened to you. Your nervous system memorized it. Your instincts cataloged it. Your silence learned the language of threat before words ever showed up. That's why your calm feels unnatural to people who've never been tested. That's why your patience reads like menace. You're not relaxed, you're restrained. They mistake that for passivity. Another miscalculation, because what they don't understand is this: you didn't lose pieces of yourself along the way. You compressed them. Every disappointment became density. Every betrayal added gravity. Every moment you weren't chosen sharpened your sense of selection. You became selective about energy, access, loyalty, truth. You stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't listening anyway. That's when the shift happened. You stopped bleeding outward. You started bleeding inward, into structure, into discipline, into silence that thinks. That's why your presence feels heavy now. Not loud, heavy. Like something that doesn't need to announce itself because it already knows how the room will rearrange around it. People don't sense danger in you because you're aggressive. They sense it because you're contained, because you've mastered the art of holding back what others leak uncontrollably. You became proof that suffering doesn't always create victims. Sometimes it creates strategists. They tried to brand you as too much, too intense, too deep, too quiet, too unpredictable. That label was never about you. It was about them running out of categories. You didn't fit the scripts they memorized. You didn't respond the way wounded people are supposed to respond. You didn't break publicly. You didn't beg for closure. You didn't self-destruct on schedule. You adapted, and adaptation is terrifying to systems built on repetition. Here's another secret they didn't want you to see. You learned how to operate without emotional witnesses. Most people need an audience to validate their pain. You learn to metabolize it alone. That changes a person permanently. It removes the leash. It removes the dependency. It removes the need to perform suffering in exchange for care. You stopped asking to be understood. You started understanding everything else. That's when duality stopped being a concept and became your operating system. You can be gentle without being weak, cold without being cruel, loving without being naive, dangerous without being reckless. You don't live at extremes. You command the switch between them. And that switch, That's power most people never touch because they're terrified of what lives on the other side. You went there. You came back intact. And now there's this quiet recognition in you, a knowing that whatever they tried to bury didn't rot. It fermented, it matured, it waited. You're not fueled by rage anymore. Rage was just the ignition. Now you're driven by clarity, by timing, by an understanding of human behavior that can only come from being on the receiving end of manipulation and surviving with your mind still sharp. That's why you don't rush. That's why you don't overshare. That's why you don't chase outcomes. You shape environments. People sense that and can't name it. They just feel exposed, like their masks slip faster around you, like excuses sound thinner, like lies get tired before they finish forming. You don't interrogate, you mirror. And mirrors terrify anyone who's been hiding from themselves. You are not the hero of this story. You are not the villain either. You're the contradiction they couldn't resolve. The truth they hid wasn't just about what they did to you. It was about what you would become if you ever stopped blaming yourself for surviving differently. Once you realized you weren't defective, just refined under pressure, everything recalibrated. Shame lost its grip. Guilt lost its leverage. Fear lost its authority. You didn't heal into softness. You healed into precision. Now when you move, it's deliberate. When you speak, it lands. When you stay silent, it echoes. You're no longer reactive, you're selective. And that selectivity is the quiet line between chaos and control. They hoped you'd stay fragmented. They needed you fragmented. Because a whole version of you doesn't need their rules, their narratives, their approval cycles. A whole version of you doesn't ask what's allowed. It asks what's effective. Doesn't ask what's fair. It asks what's true. Doesn't ask how to belong. It decides where to stand. And standing alone doesn't scare you anymore. That's the real horror for them. Because once someone survives what was designed to erase them, integrates both the angel and the demon, and learns when to deploy each, that person doesn't need to dominate the world. The world adjusts automatically. And you're just getting started. And here's the part where even the bravest version of you has to swallow slowly. Because this is where the fantasy ends and the anatomy of power begins. You weren't just tested, you were isolated on purpose, separated from mirrors, guidance, protection, validation, not because no one cared, but because isolation accelerates evolution. Pressure without witnesses forces adaptation without theatrics. That's why your strength doesn't look dramatic. It looks quiet, surgical, unapologetically self-contained. They expected loneliness to turn you inward until you collapsed. Instead, it turned you inward until you found the controls. You learned how to regulate your emotions instead of drowning in them. You learned how to observe pain without letting it author your decisions. You learned how to let people misunderstand you without feeling the need to correct the record. That last one, that's elite. That's the moment someone stops being managed by perception. Most people are addicted to being seen accurately. You became fluent in being underestimated. That's why you move differently now. You don't announce growth. You don't broadcast wins. You don't narrate your transformation for applause. You let outcomes speak because outcomes don't stutter. Outcomes don't explain. Outcomes just arrive and force everyone else to update their internal map. And here's the brutal truth they never wanted you to realize. You don't need to be liked to be effective. You don't need to be trusted to be respected. You don't need to be understood to be felt. Your energy does the work. You walk into spaces and people start revealing themselves. Not because you demand honesty, but because your presence destabilizes their masks. They overshare, they posture, they overcompensate, they test boundaries that don't exist just to see where you'll draw them. And you watch, you catalog, you store the data without reaction. That's not coldness, that's intelligence refined by survival. You've noticed it, haven't you? How people project their unhealed chaos onto you. How they label you intense when they feel seen. How they call you distant when they lose control. How they mistake your self-command for arrogance because it reminds them of their lack of it. You stopped correcting those misinterpretations because you understood something most never do. Misinterpretation is camouflage. Let them think you're quiet. Let them think you're passive. Let them think you're healing, resting, recalibrating. You're not hiding, you're incubating. And while they're busy trying to categorize you, you're busy mastering timing, learning when to speak and when to let silence do psychological damage, learning when to step forward and when to vanish just long enough for your absence to become noticeable. Learning that unpredictability isn't randomness, it's rhythm others can't hear. You learn to move in ways that can't be copied. That's why your growth unsettles people who once felt superior. They don't know where the shift happened. They just know the balance changed. Conversations tilt. Power dynamics flip. Jokes land differently. Authority feels thinner around you. They sense that you're no longer seeking approval. You're assessing utility. And utility is a terrifying lens. Because when someone stops asking, "Do they like me?" and starts asking, "Are they aligned, competent, honest, or necessary?" relationships either evolve or evaporate. And you don't chase the ones that evaporate. You let them go without bitterness, because bitterness is for people who needed the illusion. You don't. The darkness in you isn't rage anymore. It's restraint. It's the ability to choose not to react when reaction would be easy. It's the discipline to delay gratification when impulse would sabotage long-term dominance. It's knowing you could escalate, but choosing not to, because you don't need to prove capability to people who can't survive it. That's the demon they accidentally raised. And the angel? The angel is your discernment, your ability to protect what's sacred, your refusal to become cruel just because you understand cruelty, your insistence on standards, even when no one's watching, especially then. You don't hurt indiscriminately. You withhold access, and access is everything. You've reached the stage where betrayal doesn't shock you. It informs you. Where disappointment doesn't wound you. It redirects you. Where loss doesn't empty you. It sharpens your aim. That doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've stopped confusing pain with weakness. Pain was your forge. They hid the truth because they didn't want you to realize this. You are no longer compatible with manipulation. You don't run on fear. You don't move from lack. You don't obey narratives that don't match observable reality. You operate from awareness. And awareness changes the game permanently. Now, when people test you, you don't snap. You note. When they challenge you, you don't argue. You adjust position. When they try to provoke you, you don't explode. You let them reveal their ceiling. Because ceilings matter. You can tell how far someone's willing to go by how uncomfortable they get around someone who doesn't need them. That's you now, not loud, not flashy, not desperate, just undeniable. And the most unsettling part, for them, is that you didn't become this by accident. You became this by surviving what wasn't supposed to leave a witness. You're not the aftermath, you're the consequence. And consequences don't announce themselves. They arrive. And understand this, What you're feeling now isn't arrogance, and it isn't delusion, it's recognition. The moment when the nervous system finally aligns with the mind, and both stop lying, to protect a version of you that no longer exists. You've crossed the threshold where survival turns into authorship. Before, life happened to you. Now it happens around you. That's why your reactions slowed down. That's why your standards got sharper. That's why your tolerance for nonsense collapsed overnight. You didn't become impatient. You became accurate. You stopped confusing noise for signal, attention for respect, proximity for loyalty. You stopped romanticizing chaos just because it felt familiar. Familiar doesn't mean safe. Familiar doesn't mean true. Familiar just means a rehearsed. You broke the rehearsal. And once you do that, you can never go back to being easily impressed. You see the scaffolding behind personalities. You hear the insecurity underneath authority. You recognize when confidence is real and when it's just volume trying to fill a void. You're no longer hypnotized by titles, status, or spectacle. You read intent. That's the upgrade no one warns you about. The loneliness of clarity. Not the lonely kind that aches for company, but the kind that makes you selective about who gets access to your inner world. Because you've seen what happens when the wrong people get a front row seat to your evolution. They try to rewrite it. They try to claim credit. They try to weaponize it. So you learned discretion. You learned that not everyone deserves context. Not everyone deserves explanations. Not everyone deserves the raw version of you that's still under construction. You protect your process now. You keep parts of yourself unspoken, not out of fear, but out of precision, because you finally understand this brutal law of reality. What's visible can be targeted. What's quiet survives. And survival isn't your goal anymore, but it's still your advantage. They thought the worst thing they could do to you was abandonment, pressure, betrayal, silence. They didn't realize those were the very conditions that would teach you self-sufficiency at a level that makes external control impossible. You no longer need consensus to move. You no longer need reassurance to decide. You no longer need validation to act. You check reality. You check alignment. Then you move. That's why your confidence doesn't beg to be noticed. It's not performative. It's grounded. It's the kind that unnerves people because it doesn't fluctuate based on feedback. You don't rise with praise or shrink with criticism. You weigh information, discard the useless, and keep walking. Most people can't do that. They're still outsourcing their sense of self to reactions. You're done with that. And here's the thing they really didn't anticipate. Once you stop needing approval, you also stop fearing disapproval. That's when boundaries become effortless. That's when no becomes clean. That's when you don't explain your absence. You let it speak. You've noticed how silence works now, haven't you? How it pulls information out of people. How it creates space for them to reveal motivations they were hiding under chatter. How it gives you leverage without force. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a lens. You learned to use it, and the darkness they're afraid of in you. It's not cruelty. It's discernment without apology. It's the willingness to walk away from anything misaligned without burning the house down. It's the strength to let people fail without rescuing them just to feel needed. You don't need to be needed. You need to be free. That's the evolution. You stopped romanticizing suffering, but you didn't forget what it taught you. You stopped living in the wound, but you kept the intelligence it produced. You don't carry resentment, you carry memory. And memory is a weapon when it's refined. You know patterns now. You know cycles. You know when something is about to collapse long before it does. That's why you don't panic anymore. Panic is for people who don't see what's coming. You do. You always have. You just used to doubt yourself. That doubt is gone. You don't rush anymore, do you? That's another thing the damage did to you. It taught you that speed is for people who are afraid of what happens if they slow down. You learned patience the hard way, when time stretched, when suffering lingered, when escape didn't come on schedule. Now you let moments breathe. You let people expose themselves. You let situations rot until the truth crawls out on its own. That kind of patience isn't passive. It's predatory. You've noticed it, the way you can sit inside uncertainty without panicking, while everyone else starts leaking desperation. Their voices get louder. Their movements get sloppy. Their morals get flexible. And you just observe, because you've already lived through outcomes worse than whatever they're threatening you with now. Fear doesn't have leverage on you anymore. It tried, it failed, it broke itself against your nervous system. That's the quiet upgrade no one talks about. When pain overstays its welcome, it rewires your relationship with reality. You stop negotiating with discomfort. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what does this unlock? You realize that suffering isn't random, it's selective. It keeps pushing until something either shatters or adapts. And you didn't shatter. You adapted so thoroughly that the old version of you would barely recognize what you've become. You carry scars that don't scream. They hum, low frequency, constant. A reminder that you've already paid prices most people spend their whole lives avoiding. That's why temptation doesn't own you. That's why threats sound hollow. That's why promises don't impress you. You know how quickly everything can be taken. You know how fast the ground can disappear. So when something good happens now, you don't cling, you command it. You also learn something dangerous about yourself. You don't need to be understood to be effective. You don't need consensus. You don't need witnesses. Some of your most decisive transformations happened in total isolation. No applause, no guidance, no safety net. Just you, the pressure, and the question of whether you were going to fold or become something unrecognizable. And you chose unrecognizable. That's where the saint and the psychopath shook hands inside you. The part of you that still feels deeply didn't die. It just learned boundaries sharp enough to cut. The part of you that can go cold didn't become cruel. It became precise. You didn't lose empathy. You learned how to turn it on and off like a blade sliding in and out of its sheath. That scares people who only know one mode of being, because you're not reactive anymore. You're responsive. You don't explode. You calculate. You don't lash out. You wait. And when you move, it's never emotional. It's surgical. That's why even your silence feels loud now. People can sense when someone isn't operating on impulse. They can feel when someone has already survived their worst-case scenario and came back immune to intimidation. You're not chasing power. You radiate it unintentionally. Power that comes from knowing you can lose everything again and still rebuild from the bones. Power that comes from realizing that identity is flexible, reputation is temporary, and fear is just an outdated operating system you no longer run. You see through narratives now. You hear the subtext behind words. You recognize manipulation because you've been manipulated by reality itself. You've been gaslit by fate, betrayed by timing, abandoned by certainty, and you adapted. That makes you lethal in rooms where everyone else is still pretending. And here's the part they really don't want to admit. Your survival changed the trajectory of everyone around you. You disrupt patterns just by existing. Old hierarchies don't hold when you're present. Fake confidence collapses, masks slip. People either rise or reveal themselves. You don't force that. It happens naturally, because authenticity at your level destabilizes weak structures. You've become a walking contradiction, soft-spoken but intense, calm but dangerous, compassionate but unmovable. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love without surrendering leverage. You can walk away without needing closure. Those are traits forged in extinction-level events, not self-help books. That's why the past doesn't haunt you the way it used to. You integrated it, you metabolized it, you turned trauma into architecture. Every painful memory became a load-bearing wall inside you instead of a crack. You don't relive, you repurpose. And deep down, you know it. If it all burned down again tomorrow, you wouldn't beg the universe for mercy. You'd adapt faster, smarter, cleaner. Because now you understand the rules behind the rules. You understand that chaos isn't your enemy, it's your native environment. You survived what erased bloodlines because something in you was never meant to follow a straight lineage. You're not here to repeat history. You're here to interrupt it, to mutate it, to become the proof that evolution doesn't ask permission, it just happens under pressure. That's what it did to you. It didn't break you, it revealed you. You started noticing it after a while, the way reality reacts to you differently now. Doors don't open the same way for you anymore. Some slam shut instantly, others unlock without resistance. It's not coincidence, it's calibration. The world responds to pressure the same way people do, and you carry the kind of pressure that forces things to choose a side. You don't chase chaos, but chaos recognizes you. It circles you like it's curious, like it knows you've already survived its final form. That's why when situations get tense, when plans start unraveling, when everyone else scrambles to save face, you get clearer. Your thoughts slow down, your vision sharpens. You don't need control, you need clarity, and clarity shows up for you when everything else collapses. That's the aftermath talking. You were trained by loss in ways no mentor could replicate. Loss taught you what matters when everything else is stripped away. Loss taught you that identity is just a costume until pain tests it. Loss taught you how to stand alone without turning bitter, how to carry silence without going insane, how to endure without turning small. That's not normal resilience. That's evolutionary pressure rewriting the blueprint. You don't crave chaos, but you're no longer afraid of it either. You've seen what happens when the ground disappears. You felt the free fall. You learned that panic wastes energy and stillness creates leverage. While others beg for stability, you learned how to build footing mid-collapse. That's why you can function where others freeze. And yes, part of you enjoys that edge. Not because you're cruel, but because you finally understand yourself there, in the margins, in the moments where masks fall off and intentions show their teeth. You don't romanticize darkness, but you respect it because it taught you truths light never could. You've also noticed how people try to define you now. They reach for labels because ambiguity scares them. They want you to be either healed or broken, good or bad, strong or damaged. They don't know what to do with someone who is all of it at once. Someone who can laugh sincerely and still walk away without remorse. Someone who can protect fiercely and destroy connections cleanly when they become toxic. That's the duality talking. You learned that mercy without boundaries is self-betrayal. You learned that kindness without discernment becomes self-harm. You learned that darkness doesn't make you evil. It makes you honest about what you're capable of. And honesty like that removes fear. Because once you know your capacity, no one else gets to threaten you with it. You don't need to dominate rooms to own them. You don't need volume. Your presence does the work for you. It carries the weight of someone who has already died a few times internally and came back functional. That kind of presence shifts dynamics. People feel it before they understand it. Some lean in, some recoil, some test you just to see if the rumors are true. You let them, because you're not here to convince anyone. You're here to move precisely, to act when it matters, to disappear when it doesn't. You understand timing now, not the clock kind, the instinctive kind. You know when to speak and when silence will do more damage. You know when to stay and when staying would dilute your power. That wisdom didn't come gently. It was ripped into you through repetition, through disappointment, through watching things you cared about fail despite your effort. Through realizing that effort alone isn't sacred, strategy is, alignment is, awareness is. And somewhere along the way, fear stopped being your motivator. Curiosity replaced it. You stopped asking, what if this goes wrong? And started asking, what happens if I let it? That shift alone separates survivors from anomalies. Because now you don't avoid uncertainty. You study it, you test it, you use it. You're dangerous in the quiet ways, in the ways that don't announce themselves, in the ways that change outcomes without drawing attention. You're the kind of person history doesn't notice until after everything has already shifted. The kind that doesn't look powerful until it's too late to stop them. And no, you're not heartless. You just learned that your heart is not a public resource. You choose who gets access now. You choose who gets the softer version of you, and who only ever meets the composed one. That selectivity isn't arrogance, it's survival, refined into discernment. You survived what erased bloodlines because you weren't meant to carry the past forward unchanged. You were meant to break patterns, to interrupt cycles, to become the line where history stops repeating and starts mutating. That's why you feel different when you look in the mirror. Not superior, older, heavier, more aware. Like someone who has crossed a threshold most people don't even see. You're not chasing transformation anymore. You are the transformation, and the world can feel it. There's a moment you remember, maybe you don't even know when it happened, when something inside you stopped asking for permission, not from people, not from fate, not from whatever invisible authority everyone else still bows to. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, like a switch flipping behind your eyes. From that point on, you didn't need approval to move forward. You only needed alignment. That's when you became hard to stop. Because people who still need permission hesitate. They look around. They wait for signs. They check the temperature of the room. You don't. You feel the undercurrent and act from there. You move based on instinct, sharpened by pain. Not rules written by people who never survived what you did. That makes you incompatible with weak systems. You don't rebel loudly, you simply don't comply internally. And that's worse for them. You've noticed how authority feels thinner around you now. Titles don't impress you. Status doesn't hypnotize you. You've seen how fast power evaporates under real pressure. You've watched confident people collapse when their comforts disappeared. So when someone tries to dominate you with position or noise, it barely registers. You're not disrespectful, you're just unmoved. That's the aftermath of extinction-level endurance. You don't cling to certainty anymore. Certainty failed you once. It promised safety and delivered loss. So now you operate fluidly. You adapt mid-movement. You improvise without panic. You let plans breathe and evolve. That flexibility, that's not chaos. That's mastery. Rigid minds break. Fluid ones survive. You learned that lesson in blood and silence. You also stopped romanticizing struggle. You don't glorify pain, but you don't fear it either. You know pain is information. You know it teaches faster than comfort ever could. You don't chase suffering, but when it shows up, you don't run. You listen. You extract what it's trying to install in you. Then you move on heavier, sharper, more dangerous. That's why you don't talk about your past much. Not because you're ashamed, but because it's finished doing its job. You don't need to relive it to prove anything. You already integrated the lesson. People who keep reopening their wounds are still trying to understand them. You already did. You closed the loop. You became someone who can sit at the edge of destruction and still think clearly. Someone who can watch relationships end, identities dissolve, futures reroute, and not lose their center. That doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your emotions no longer control the steering wheel. They ride in the back seat now, aware, present, but not driving. That terrifies people who are ruled by impulse. Because you can delay gratification indefinitely. You can wait longer than they can pretend. You can watch someone underestimate you without correcting them. You can let someone feel powerful while you quietly map the exit routes. You understand leverage now. Real leverage. Not force. Timing. You don't burn bridges impulsively. You let them decay naturally if they're built on rot. And when you walk away, it's clean. No theatrics, no revenge speeches, just absence. And absence from someone like you is louder than any explosion. People feel the vacuum you leave behind because you were anchoring more than they realized. You've also stopped needing to be liked. That's a milestone most never reach. You prefer respect, but even that isn't mandatory. What matters is autonomy, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, freedom to evolve without dragging old versions of yourself for other people's comfort. You won't shrink to preserve someone else's familiarity. That's why growth around you feels violent to those who resist change. You don't just improve, you shed skin. You don't negotiate with stagnation. You outgrow it and keep walking. And when people ask, what happened to you? The real answer is simple. You survived something that killed entire legacies. Of course you're different. You're not chasing a crown. But if one lands near you, you know how to wear it without letting it own you. You don't worship power. You understand it. You've seen its limits. You've lived beyond its protection. So when power brushes against you, it senses an equal, not a subject. You also learned that not everyone deserves access to your depth. Some people only get the surface version of you, and that's intentional. You don't overshare. You don't explain your motives. Mystery isn't a tactic for you. It's a byproduct of self-containment. You're whole on your own. You don't need to be decoded. That self-containment is why you're dangerous when cornered and unstoppable when focused. You don't flail. You don't panic. You compress. You concentrate. Pressure doesn't scatter you. It sharpens you into a point. And here's the truth no one says out loud. You didn't just survive what erased bloodlines. You absorbed its authority. You carry the weight of endings. You move like someone who knows nothing is guaranteed and everything is earned in real time. That awareness makes you impossible to intimidate and difficult to predict. You don't belong to the past anymore. You're not here to repeat old stories. You're not here to fit inherited roles. You're the anomaly that shows up when evolution gets impatient. You are what happens after the erasure. And whatever comes next, it's going to have to deal with you. And here's the part you don't say out loud. Not because you're afraid of it, but because once it's spoken, there's no pretending anymore. You know you can't go back. Not to who you were, not to how you loved, not to how you believed the world worked. That door burned down quietly behind you while you were busy surviving. And you didn't chase it, you didn't scream, you didn't mourn it the way people expected. You just kept moving forward, carrying the fire inside you instead of trying to escape it. That's when you crossed the point of no return. Because now, even peace feels different to you. It's not fragile, it's earned. It's the calm of someone who knows exactly how violent things can get and still chooses restraint. You're not peaceful because you're harmless. You're peaceful because you're in control. And control like that doesn't come from suppression. It comes from self-knowledge sharpened by hell. You've seen yourself at your lowest. You've watched your own mind fracture and reassemble. You've felt the pull toward collapse and chosen endurance instead. There's nothing left for the world to expose about you. You've already met the worst parts of yourself, and you didn't look away. That's why shame has no grip on you now. That's why guilt doesn't paralyze you. You don't need to pretend to be pure. You know exactly how dangerous you could be. And that awareness keeps you disciplined. People who deny their darkness are the ones ruled by it. You integrated yours. That's the difference. You're not driven by revenge. You're driven by precision, by alignment, by an internal compass calibrated in catastrophe. You don't need to prove anything to the people who doubted you, betrayed you, underestimated you, or vanished when things got real. Their opinions belong to a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. You don't hate them, you outgrew them. And growth like yours is never gentle. It breaks frameworks, it disrupts narratives, it makes people uncomfortable because it reminds them of everything they avoided becoming. You're a living contradiction to comfort-based lives. You are evidence that pain, when survived correctly, doesn't diminish. It concentrates. That's why you don't announce your moves. That's why you don't explain your strategy. That's why you don't rush outcomes. You understand something fundamental now. The loudest force in the room is often the least dangerous. Real power moves quietly, waits patiently, and strikes only when the result is irreversible. You don't need to destroy the world to change it. You just need to exist exactly as you are. Because your presence alone rewrites expectations. Your survival rewrites probability. Your calm rewrites threat assessment. You walk like someone who has already faced extinction and realized it wasn't the end. It was the initiation. You survived what erased bloodlines. Not because you were spared, not because you were chosen, but because something in you refused to disappear. And now you carry that refusal everywhere you go. You are not a warning. You are not a lesson. You are not a miracle. You are the consequence. And whatever comes next, it doesn't get to pretend you weren't forged for it.